Hi, welcome back. And this video, I get asked a lot, why do you teach trading? So in this video, I want to explain why I teach and the journey that I've had as a teacher of trading alongside the trading career. So I thought if I explain the whole career, the journey as a teacher and trader and how they've combined and how they help each other, that it will make it a little bit more clearer to you and to people out there about why do I do this, not just me, but why do other traders teach. I think there's some misconceptions out there about why people would teach and all the rest of it. There's a lot of downsides of teaching, particularly in the retail industry. Every time you teach someone in the retail industry, you're putting your reputation on the line. Retail traders are not as discreet as professionals. If I'm working in the professional industry, I know that my information is going to be handled well and professionally. Retail traders often are not like that. That is an issue. That is a real, big reason why some people won't want to share their information and they're trading with retail traders. So there are a number of downsides potentially to retail traders, to teaching them. So I want to explain my journey and explain why I teach, and particularly relevant to what I'm doing with the Norden method and that community. So if we go back to my start of my career, I was given full-time trading book when I was 19. So we're talking about 1990, it dates me there. The collapse of the Nikkei. Now, I was trading Japanese warrants, Japanese equity warrants. These were sort of highly geared, highly leveraged call options on Japanese stocks. Until about 1988, 89, they were very kind of just a very vanilla basic product that people used to punt on the upside of Japanese stocks. But by the late 80s, there were a few pioneers in the industry, and I mentioned in one of my previous videos, Dr. Kevin Connolly, that I subsequently worked with later on or was taught by. He was one of the pioneers of using warrants to trade volatility trade with them. So gamma scalping with them and essentially volatility arbitrage. He was one of the pioneers in the warrant industry, and there were a few others. But most warrant traders, even by 1990, 91, were aware of these traders, but didn't know how to trade in that way. So about 1990, 91, my bank employed a salesperson who was from Merrill Lynch. And they were very well aware of all the implied volatility aspect of warrants and the volatility arbitrage opportunities. And I spent time with him, in my own, lunch times. Our market was closed for 2 hours every day for lunch. And I spent time with him learning about, okay, what does this mean? What are delta, gamma, vega? All of these things, even as market makers, a vast majority of market makers knew nothing about this. They traded them in a very plain vanilla way. I learned a lot of that information from him, and I started to apply it to my trading. And started to see results. I started to see, and I started to realize which warrants were looking attractive to these volatility arbitrage funds who were becoming more and more the biggest players. And so that allowed me to get ahead of them, and it really started to improve my P&L dramatically, not just in contrast to my peers on my desk, but also to other market makers in the business. I used to get on a train in the morning, lived in a similar area to 2 or 3 other market makers in my market, and it was clear they didn't understand these concepts. So I've started to realize I'm getting edge here. So now my managers of my desk of seeing this, and this was the first time that I got asked to teach. They said to me, Gary, what have you learned? What is it that's causing you to be so much more profitable than everybody else? I explained what I'd learned and how I was using it to trade. And they said to me, we want you to run some classes to teach everybody else on the desk. So I did that. And that's fair enough. And that's often how banks, particularly in those days, would work. Someone with information would share with the others. So I ran some courses, some classes during those lunch breaks to teach the other traders and assistant traders in my department how I was doing this, what I was doing. It was never, if anybody had ever come up to me, it was never a secret. I was always happy to share. It's just that some traders are quite lazy. They didn't want to learn new things. But this was becoming very valuable. So that was the first time I taught people. And what it did, a couple of things. It crystallized in my mind what it was I was needing to teach, and therefore it refined and in my head exactly what it was, the subject, and how when you teach something you have to learn it in a different way. And so that actually helped me again. But that was the first time. I was about 20 years old and I was already teaching other traders. It happened in banks and it happened again and again during my career. If you're doing something well and you have found some edge or something that's really interesting, you will get asked to teach it. And again, it's usually going to be the best traders that are employed to teach or asked to teach the other traders on the desk. After working at that bank, I moved down to the live floor. Now, on the floor, mentoring was just an essential and a key component and aspect of trading on the floor. Everybody had mentors, had guides, particularly as locals, those of us that traded for ourselves. We usually had a backer to begin with, someone that, supported us, guided us, mentored us. So being taught was a key part of trading on the live floor. And almost every successful live floor local had someone that they learned under. So again, the teaching, and then you then went on and taught others. That kind of chain was something that was really vital and a key component of the futures pit trading. Now, for me, I had a really good mentor initially, but just as I was about to go into the pit to trade options for the first time, my mentor changed and I went into a different pit than I thought I was going to go into. And the mentor that I'd had lined up in the new pit really did not help me at all. And reality was, my first year and a half when I made some money in that pit, I struggled. I struggled. And that key reason for that was I didn't have a proper mentor. He was there in the pit, but he really wasn't helping me. He was keeping a lot of information to himself, which he shouldn't have done. And that really hurt me. Ultimately, I moved out and went into another pit on my own, did a bit better. But the difference between having a really good mentor and not was massive on the floor. And has always been a key part, I think, of becoming a trader. And I've mentioned that before in about learning from other people. That's why we learn from people. I could not have got where I got today without the guidance of others. So teaching has been a fundamental aspect. I've run trading programs at most investment banks that I was, usually because I was doing something that others weren't, or making money in conditions that others weren't. And external banks started to bring me in as well to teach. So teaching always went hand in hand for me with trading. I traded and I ran trading courses. It's always been, since I was 20 years old, something that I did. I've never separated the two, because to me, when you have knowledge as a trader, you pass that on. And again, that was reinforced particularly in the live floor. If we go forward now to the Norden method, it's become a really valuable site and a community for me. I've learned a lot, and I want to just talk about some of those things. Why teach this? Well, of course, as I've mentioned, some of the downsides of teaching retail traders, and they'll take your information and they might share it illegally, or they might take your information and misuse it in terms of they don't trade exactly how I want them to trade, and that's really frustrating sometimes. But there are some great things as well, okay? Obviously, the success stories I really liked, the traders that I've taught who are doing well. I have had a number of traders since I've taught retail traders who have gone on to work at hedge funds and are trading at hedge funds. It's extremely difficult to get a job as a hedge fund trader. So the fact that I have a few of my students have gone on to do that, I'm exceptionally proud of. But that's just one aspect of it. It's actually also good for my development as a trader. With the Norden method, where my students are sending in their videos of their trading, I've seen a number of mistakes that I would never have known about before. That helps me a lot. It helps me to understand the failures and flaws of some traders. It helps me design new types of strategies or trades. It really is a really interesting part when you're teaching retail traders. I also, again, it crystallizes in my mind what is exactly my edge. When you teach people, I have to precisely explain to them, this is what we're doing right now. This is why we're picking it off. So I absolutely have to understand what it is I'm doing, what my edge is. I have to be able to correct mistakes. When people send me the videos, I can't just say, yeah, you know what, your psychology is a bit off today. What happened to you as a kid? What went wrong for you that you've done a bad trade? None of that. I have to explain, because that's all nonsense, right? There's a lot of people who are so-called teachers and educators who give generalizations, but they're not really going to help you, right? I have to be able to explain exactly what went wrong, what happened with this trade, what went wrong precisely. And again, that focuses me even more about what is the Norden method. And again, this has led to improvements. The Norden Method course, the Red Jacket course, has had a number of updates. It's continually being updated and changed and improved based on this information. So it's continually growing. And for those of you that may have bought a pirated copy of it out there somewhere, you wouldn't have any of this, right? It's one reason why, people say, well, why should I, pay up for it? Well, because you get all this continual updated information. So I'm continually updating, learning more by teaching. So this is also helpful for me. And amongst that, I actually found and sort of discovered and termed a completely new type of market action. You think about, everyone talks about the chop and market moves, and as in a day trading perspective, what I came across was something that's completely never been talked about before by anybody. I think I've termed the phrase myself. I'm only using it for my students, but it's actually a really key factor now, and I talk about it a lot when I'm researching and narrating videos and helping my students. A completely new, important classification of market action. So that's something that I would never have known before. By looking at dozens of videos, I started to think there's a type of action here, a really important moment in the market movement or the market action that's essential if you're going to get some good trades. And that whole little concept I've now termed, and I'm teaching that to my students now. So that, and again, has led me to some new innovations as well. So why do I teach? Obviously helping people is one thing, but what I've learned along the way as well, how it crystallizes and really focuses me on what I'm doing, it improves. And then from then, I learn from that as well, and I improve my trading by seeing these things as well. So I hope this sort of teaching through this long journey has explained why I'm doing it. And, there are some other very good teachers out there in various markets, and I'm sure we have the same type of journey. So I hope you found it interesting, and thanks again for visiting.